There was quite a few comments on last week's video concerning the possibility or the potential for this pool wall to create condensation. And that's a valid concern. Cold surfaces can create condensation. What I did here was some calculations based on statistical averages for relative humidity and daytime as well as nighttime temperatures for our summer months, which is when this system is going to run, July and August. There will be a diversion valve outside that will allow the water to go straight into the tank as it does now, or come into the house. And so what I found out is that our relative humidity is 62%, and that's an average between night and day, or overnight and daytime. And our temperature averages here, the overnight, which is the most concerning one because it's when the humidity goes up, is only 18 degrees Celsius. So what I concluded is that the conditions in order for the wall to condensate are hardly ever going to be present, which is high humidity and a great difference between the air temperature and the surface of the wall temperature. Because as the humidity rises during the nighttime, the temperature lowers. So we will still be opening the windows like you should in an environment, in a climate like this during the night. And that is going to drop the air temperature. So the air temperature, the ambient temperature, and the wall temperature are never going to be very far apart during the time when the humidity is higher, which is at night. So the likelihood of that wall ever create condensation is very low. But still, in case I do notice that the wall is developing excessive moisture, then I can always limit the amount of water coming through the wall so that the surface is never too low in temperature. So I'm preparing the edge of the wall to have a pretty good surface in order to put the plastic moisture barrier up against. And I'd like to talk a little bit about how this is going to be done and how there's so much talk about the breathability of walls and different materials, cement versus lime and other natural materials. So I would love to talk a little bit about how I'm going to do it and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So let's just start with our, there's a ground that's level, that's good. Gravel is important because it doesn't retain a lot of water, drains easily. So it's important to have gravel as much as possible. And then plastic layer that will serve as a water shield, a water barrier. So water, moisture, does not get to materials that will absorb the water. So we have a plastic layer first,
Then we have an insulation layer, and then we have concrete layer. So the floor actually is almost like a floating floor because it's on top of this rigid insulation. We will have, in this case here, a concrete layer that is about 8 centimeters, around 3 inches. Okay. That layer sits on the rigid insulation, and I do put another piece of styrofoam to reduce the thermal bridging to the wall that is on the ground. So the most important thing though is moisture here, because all the talk about breathability and how walls breathe and some materials breathe and others don't breathe really has to do with moisture, because moisture is really the problem, or can be the problem in the structure, in the build, in the wall. So the idea is to prevent the cement, the concrete slab from absorbing moisture. The moisture that's going to be transmitted up from the ground through the wall. And regardless of whatever is used to point the gaps, the joints between the stones, this stone, the granite is porous, is always going to absorb moisture from the ground and then release it inside the space here. So if the moisture gets to the concrete, it can be a problem for the finishing materials, whether it's ceramic tile or wood. The moisture can become a problem. In this case here, I'm gonna use wood for the warmth and the more cohesive look for the originality of the building, because it had a wood floor originally, and I very much want that, the stone and the wood, to be back together. But I want the wood to be kept away from moisture, because wood and moisture are not meant to be together. The moisture will cause problems over time. It will lift the boards will expand and contract and become a problem. So the idea is to prevent the moisture from getting to the concrete slab, so that then the concrete slab will not transmit the moisture to the wood top floor, to the wood finishing. So the plastic layer is crucial for that. Okay. Now, of course, you can say that the boards that are going to be right here, right up against the sill, the floor here, which is going to be exposed, are going to absorb a little bit of humidity, of course. But if it's only the first couple of boards, 2 or 3 boards on the floor, that is not a problem. They will expand a little bit, but not enough to cause a lifting of the floor or eventually rotting of the wood. Another thing that is important here is the pointing material, or how the moisture travels up through the walls. What is very common in this region is that the houses built in the last 50 to 75 years, houses built out of cinder block and brick with a Portland type cement mortar, and they have walls, interior walls, that often experience the salts coming through the surface and damaging the paint, damaging the surfaces of walls. It's very common because the moisture does travel through the through the materials and comes out to the surface. Now, mitigating that is very difficult unless you shield the footings, like in modern construction, and or the interior walls are a different layer, not the actual wall that's connected to the ground. In this case here, this wall is connected to the ground. How I'm gonna point the walls here remains to be seen. Um, I know that a cement type mortar is gonna release those salts. It's just gonna do it. I don't know that potentially, I think that it's possible that a clay-based mortar, like what was here, I mean, there's more dirt than clay, but there's some clay, that clay will absorb the humidity and release it more gently into the air, and those salts are not, because the salts, I believe, are from the cement. Those salts are released on the walls are from the cement. And so we won't have that problem. But people say, well, but in the summer months, the dryness caused the clay to eventually shed off and cause dust. And there's all this, I don't know. People talk about this. I have no experience with it. I don't know. Probably willing to try it out and see what happens. So I'm not in a hurry to point the interior walls. I may wait a season or two to see what happens and experiment with different things and then go from there. But the main thing at this moment is that the concrete slab is kept away from any moisture that's going to come up through the wall. That is the main thing. And that is what I'm working on to make sure that this is really well sealed and that the concrete slab is going to be kept dry. And that will mean it will last as long as the plastic lasts and prevents water, humidity from coming through to the porous concrete.
A few thoughts on systems, active systems, passive systems, systems that are available to us, systems that we can install in our house, systems that are part of our everyday life sometimes. Every other day we hear of the next smart technology. Just the other day I heard about the smart toilet. The company that makes it actually was calling it an intelligent toilet. I couldn't help it. But these systems that are supposedly going to make our life easier, these smart systems, are they really going to make our life easier, better? The learning is a real thing. Airline pilots spend a lot of time in flight simulators so that they can maintain their skill, because when they operate an aircraft, they don't do much piloting. The aircraft flies by itself. So these smart technologies are not necessarily making us any smarter. We can look at very advanced societies. Case in point is South Korea. The Korean peninsula is the most fascinating piece of land in this planet, as far as I'm concerned. Such contrasting societies. We don't know much about the North, but we know plenty about the South. And the South Korean society is got some very serious social issues, and they also have the highest count of robots. So seems that technological sophistication is not really helping much there. So I believe to be cautious about the technologies that we incorporate into our everyday life. I personally opt for passive systems whenever possible. And yes, passive systems often require more of us, more participation from us. Although not always the case. If you're driving a standard transmission car, yes, there's definitely much more involvement from us than, say, an automatic transmission car. Let's look at this particular system we're looking at right now here. My grandmother already used this system. I, for one, experienced it as a child, and then I ignored it. When I wanted chickens, I got myself an incubator and saw through the work involved in raising chicks from eggs with an incubator, a brooder box with a heat lamp, taking care of them, making sure they had the right conditions. And here we are, back to the basics. That little bird, she can have 6 nests in a year. Each nest can have at least 7 to 9 eggs. And without any involvement from me.